Good morning. Welcome to Coffee Talk with Heidi. I am so glad that you are checking in with me today as we begin to discuss the next week's theme. But first, how was your Sabbath this weekend? Did you find a few things you wanted to change or tweak or any new ideas for next week? Please leave me a comment so I can find out how you are celebrating Sabbath. Now, grab your coffee, come sit down with me, and let's dive into this next theme, which is that Sabbath means we are free to connect. Now, there are a few interesting people that God invites in to celebrate the Sabbath. The first two groups of people I want to look at are the foreigners and the eunuchs. And God mentions these people as he talks about Sabbath through the prophet Isaiah in chapter 56. And the eunuchs were people who were not able to have children. They did not have families of their own. You can look into what that means if you want, but let's think about that just in this way, that eunuchs were people who did not have their own family. And so God says to them in Isaiah 56 verse 4, "To the eunuchs who keep my Sabbaths, who choose the things that please me and hold fast to my covenant, I will give in my house and within my walls a monument and a name better than sons and daughters. I will give them an everlasting name that shall not be cut off." God is inviting people who felt like outsiders and who had no heritage of their own, no kids, no family to pass on a legacy to. God invites them in and says, I will give you a legacy, an eternal place in my home and my family. God invites the eunuchs, those without families, to come in, and he blesses them on the Sabbath as they celebrate and seek God. The other group of people that Isaiah 56 mentions is the foreigners. And God says, the foreigners who join themselves to the Lord and to minister to him and love the name of the Lord and to be his servants, everyone who keeps my Sabbath and does not profane it and holds fast to my covenant, these I will bring to the holy mountain and make them joyful in my house of prayer. He says, I will be their God. And so God is inviting the foreigners, those who feel like they're outsiders, those who feel like for whatever reason they just don't fit in. God invites them in and says, celebrate my Sabbaths, worship me, and I will bless you, because he loves those who are on the outside. Now, Jesus in the New Testament continued this theme of bringing in the outsiders and welcoming people who were outcasts. And how we see Jesus doing this is by helping those who needed healing. And so looking over at Luke 14 in verse 5, and there are several places where Jesus heals people on the Sabbath. But look at what he says here. When people are criticizing him for healing on the Sabbath, which they considered to be work, Jesus said, which of you having a son or an ox that has fallen into a well on the Sabbath day will not immediately pull him out? At another time in Luke 13, Jesus healed a woman who had been disabled, it says, for 18 years. And her spine was crooked. She was not able to stand up straight. And Jesus healed her. But of course, he was again criticized. They said there's 6 days for people to be healed. Don't come to be healed on the Sabbath. But Jesus says, you are such hypocrites. Would not you untie your donkey every day on the Sabbath and lead your donkey and your ox to water? Should not this woman who has been bound up by Satan, by this disability for all these years, should not she be loosed from this infirmity and healed on the Sabbath day? And so we see that Jesus is bringing people in, those who were demon possessed or those who had physical defects. They were not looked at as worthy. They were not looked at as full members of society. And Jesus brings in these outsiders and says, even on the Sabbath, he says, you are my people. I want you to know more than anything that you are welcome in my family. And so my challenge to you this week for Sabbath, as we think about being free to connect, is to think about those who are outsiders. Is there someone that you could invite in to celebrate a Sabbath with you? Maybe not for this weekend, but maybe one of the other Sabbaths coming up. Is there an immigrant family in your area that you know of? Is there a community of refugees in your area that you could try to connect with on the Sabbath? Are there people who are single and have no family of their own, or maybe elderly people whose families all live far away, that you could invite in to celebrate Sabbath with your family, like God invited the eunuchs in who had no family of their own? Or maybe there's someone who's disabled, or just someone else who feels outcast that you could invite in to connect with you on the Sabbath. Maybe not this week, maybe in a coming week. And then the final challenge to think about is on this Sabbath, as we think about being free to connect, is look closely at your own family and ask God to show you, is there someone that I need to particularly connect with in my own family this week? There have been seasons in my life where I felt God was saying to me, just pay attention to this child. He needs a little bit more, or she needs a little bit more. So think about, are your own family members maybe feeling overlooked, or are they feeling like they're not always included or not always heard? Now, especially if you have teens, I know it can be really hard to try to connect because they put up all these walls. But I promise you, lean in, try to connect with them this weekend and see what God would say about bringing in even your own family members or those whom God sees as part of his family or wants as part of his family, to press into relationships this week as we celebrate Sabbath and we think about what it really means that we are free to connect, as we're not worrying about work or the other things that usually occupy our time and our thoughts. Thank you for being here with me today. Leave a comment. I would love to hear from you. Go enjoy your coffee, enjoy your day with Jesus, and think about, who does God want you to connect with this week?